So, the Google Pixel hardware team is doing a pretty weird job with it so far. And based on the leaks we're seeing for the Pixel 3 XL, no, they did not reveal it in a commercial. Those are simulated images. I know we all love to imagine that a company's releasing fake prototypes and that we're looking at that expecting the worst and then they're all gonna trick us out there at the end, but we've suspected that would happen for like 5 different things over the last 10 years and it never happens. The ugly notch on the Pixel 3 XL leaks we're seeing, that they're real. Don't try to dissuade or persuade otherwise. Maybe there will be something like the Pixel Ultra. Even if that product doesn't exist though, it's not going to sell very well with the current Google hardware tactic of selling their products on the market, which is do what Apple does and keep making it expensive, even though no one's buying these things. But here's that one simple little trick that could easily fix the Google hardware's lineup. This is gonna sound oversimplified, but I want to elaborate myself on this video, which I usually do on this channel, as I like to dive deep into subjects and get really into the fine details. That's where I find all the magic and all the gold. The simple solution that could fix all of Google's hardware that could make things totally redeemable, totally buyable, and totally respectable is simply if they lowered their prices. I know, that sounds simple, right? That sounds like, well, of course, yeah, Drew, what are you talking about? Hear me out though, there are some particular instances in which this makes sense for Google. It does not make sense for Samsung or Apple, but Google is the one company that could financially and successfully raise their shipment units and actually earn more money, which I know doesn't really make sense when I'm telling you to lower the prices, but they have a very specific business model, and I think that's why lowering the prices of the hardware could actually change up some things. So first of all, right now, Pixel, both in the Pixel Book and in the Pixel phone, have very significant hardware downfalls. You know, MKBHD bringing up that the Snapdragon 835 doesn't age well. They released this phone at an awkward time of the year. It's 1 month after all the iPhones have come out. So even if the Pixel Ultra or the Pixel 3 is amazing, most people have already bought a new iPhone. So by that time, they're not really in the market for a new phone. They're not interested in what Google has to offer. Samsung's smart enough to release the Note right before the iPhone comes out because Samsung is a smart company. But also, by the time the Pixel comes out, it's like the last flagship phone of the year to get the latest Snapdragon chip. So it's going to be slow, it's going to be laggy. Also, the hardware team is just known to leave out things for the sake of them being their own thing. So wireless charging or included headphones with the purchase, a dual camera, which they have no need for, right? Because AI bokeh, yes, it's very good, but some people use telephoto lenses for other things. Some people are really excited for ultra wide lenses. Google, there are benefits, okay, to having extra lenses, but throwing all that aside, even though the Pixel phones are lacking a lot of features that many other flagships have, lowering the price would suddenly redeem all that. If this phone was affordable and was more along the prices of the OnePlus 6, that would excuse the missing features. No one would be upset if a $500 phone didn't come with headphones or didn't come with a dual camera, wireless charging. We'd be like, well, I would like those things, but I guess it's $500. It's just kind of like the success of the OnePlus 6. By no means an iPhone killer, but still selling really well for OnePlus's history of smartphone sales. And while the OnePlus 6 is not the smartphone with all of the flagship features into a cheaper package, it's definitely missing things. People are okay with it because the price is lower and that's their main audience. I think what's best for Google is for them both in the Pixel Book lineup, because we've been using this thing. The review is in the works right now, but spoiler alert, I don't like it. And we kind of knew that going into it. This is more of just a, if we use it in person, will we discover some things that we didn't know before? And we have. It's actually a lot worse than we thought it was based on some firsthand experience with this thing, but all of that Pixel hardware, if it was made cheaper, would suddenly be far more interesting to a different demographic. The Pixel Book and Pixel phone should not be competing with Apple and Samsung. They should be a different tier. Yes, you can compare them, but if the prices are drastically separated, you're not going to look at them as competition because you'll say, well, the iPhone 10 or the Galaxy S9 can do a lot more, but it also costs a lot more. The fact that the Pixel 2 XL actually costs more than a Galaxy S9 makes it a death wish. It means that no one's interested in that phone. No one's buying that phone unless you're on YouTube, and then every YouTuber loves it. But when you go to the real world and you see how well the Pixel sales are, you can see that not that many people are interested in it. They're not partnering with many other carriers, which could have some attribute to its failure. But try to keep in mind, the OnePlus 6 is missing a lot of features that both Samsung and Apple has in their more expensive models. But in India, the OnePlus 6 is crushing it. It's actually outselling Samsung phones over in India, which is this growing, exploding giant market that Apple is actually having a hard time getting into. They're having a hard time keeping the prices lower from the import tariffs and making iPhones that appeal to demographics there, OnePlus 6 found what people liked. It is now selling really, really well in that growing country. Notice it has a notch, and it outsold the Galaxy phones. Maybe Samsung should make a commercial about OnePlus now. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking. It's not just as simple as lowering prices because Google has to make money. They are a business. There's nothing necessarily wrong with trying to turn a profit. That makes sense as a business model. My argument is that Google is probably losing money when they put so much R&D and so much investment into hardware that not that many people are interested in. They have to be constantly putting the Pixelbook on sale and trying to promote it everywhere and trying to lower the prices of it because not that many people are interested. And by all means, they have no reason to. There's no good reason to buy a Pixelbook. And with all the other Android smartphones on the market, and not to mention iPhones getting cheaper and cheaper and better, there's less and less reason for people to give Pixel a shot if they were to lower their prices and try to aim at a different demographic, not just rival that of Apple's. We want to be Apple, we want to be Samsung. No, you're clearly not good at that. Aim for something else. OnePlus is kind of crushing it right now in the budget Android market. If they had some competition that maybe got a lot of money from something else, that means they could take a hit in their product unit sales. See, with Google, I don't know if you know this, but basically like 90% of their income all comes from Google search and ad revenue. Google does not make money via hardware sales. If they did, they would have gone bankrupt a long time ago. But because Google has so much ad revenue coming from Google search and all of their services, which is really making all of their money, that means that their hardware lineups, the reason they get canceled every other day and they cancel some project and start another one, is because they don't really have any stakes. Apple, if they don't sell hardware, they don't make money. They don't sell their software, and yet that is half of what their company does, is just design operating systems and updates and design services that work with the hardware. That's why, to me, it makes sense that Apple products cost so much more than the competition, is because you are paying for that software when you buy the hardware, whereas a company like Samsung puts a little skin on Android, but they don't have to design it. They don't have to run the App Store. They just have to worry about hardware, and that's why it makes sense that Samsung is so much better at selling hardware. But most of the time, people don't buy Galaxy phones because they don't like the skins that Samsung puts on it. They don't like all the bloatware. See, if Google decided to lower their prices on all their phones and lower the prices on the Pixelbook to something a bit more reasonable, people may turn their heads and start saying, this is kind of interesting. This is kind of a good deal. I'm even suggesting that Google should take the Amazon style approach and actually start losing money per shipment, because that means that more of your personal phones are going to be out there and it'll be easier to get people moving into Google search. That's why Google promotes the Google Assistant so much, is because it uses their search engine. The more people they have using their search engine, the more businesses and websites are willing to pay Google to make sure their results get to the top. That's the priority of where Google's money is made. And right now, you're basically just taking your hardware department's cash and just burning it. You're throwing it into the garbage, because when you make really expensive phones that are missing a lot of flagship features, no one wants to buy them. That's why no one's buying them. That's why they're not selling well. So if you are to even take a hit and understand that, yes, we are going to lose money on the Pixel 3, but we're going to start it at $500. That way it is much more affordable. And yes, it may have an ugly notch on it, but if people find out that they can get a really, really good camera in this phone that has great AI features, and they've got the Google Assistant, they're getting a stock Android experience, and they're saving money, that will suddenly excuse all of the complaints and issues we have with the Pixel and say, yeah, it is missing this, but hey, it is pretty affordable. Then you will have much more success in the sales numbers. No, you will not turn a profit by that hardware alone, but Google, the more important thing is you get people switching to Android and staying on Android, because right now, iOS is on the rise. There's a lot of people switching. It's taking up more and more of the market, and I know some people may disagree with me, but I personally don't go for the whole, this is expensive, so it caters to people who want it as a status symbol, and that's why products sell well. I don't think that's Apple. A lot of people think that way. They're like, they want to buy it because it's expensive and it has that logo and it's a status symbol thing. I think there may be part of that, but it's definitely not the only reason they succeeded. It's because they had a reliable experience, a consistent experience with the products that kept people coming back to them, because anytime they tried Android, they were filled with bloatware, slowness, not as many updates, and iOS was just a more standard, easier to understand market. There's only so many iPhones that are released a year, whereas Android is so cluttered. Google, if you want to make your own market, and if you want to start formulating some consistency and some reliability in your market, that means that you do have to take a hit on hardware. Don't try to turn a profit from door one, because right now you're behind. No one's really interested in what you're making because it's expensive and it's missing features. So that means you have to get people invested in the market, get people liking the Pixel brand, that aren't just the people you send it to, and start formulating that audience there. Then maybe down the road start making some more premium stuff that they'd be okay with paying more for. But right now, you're starting out right at the door with an $800 price tag and missing features, and people are like, I don't know what that is and I don't care to find out. The budget stuff will mean you could sell a lot better in India. You could even start out selling Samsung and start beating Android at its own game, and then a lot more people might be interested in that Pixel branding and see what else you have to offer. So I'm no business major, I'm no genius in this sort of field, but I definitely think that if Google focused more on expanding their audience and not necessarily profiting from it, they could get a lot more people's interest down the road, and it would be better for them overall, because Google, at the end of the day, makes their most amount of money from ad revenue and search, and you could control that and you could streamline that if you had more people using your built-in hardware, getting all the new Android features every single year, not having to wait years and years for the updates to come to you, and maybe start building your own in-house chips so things are faster and you're not laggy after just a few months of use. So those are my ideas on how Google could fix their hardware lineup right now, because I think it's personally kind of a mess. They've done a couple neat things, but the prices are definitely ruining it, and it's showing in the sales numbers that no one is really interested in these products. And the fact of the matter is, the Pixel Book is a pure example of how someone in a committee thought this was a good idea. They were like, Chromebooks are plastic, they'll sell better if they look like MacBooks, not thinking at all about the software or how the hardware works with it. This has been a terrible experience so far. I can't wait to rip it apart in the review, which is gonna be more of a rant, but everything the Pixel Book stands for shows me that Google is not thinking from an end user perspective. They're just thinking of like, how does our website rival to Apple's website? They sell premium MacBooks, we need to sell premium notebooks. It's bad. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. This is your Apple Ship here, and I will see you in the next one.